I just wanted to say, yesterday was perfect. You're right, Jamie. Karen and I, we worked together in California, and then again later in Oxford. So fate brought us back together. There were some brilliant things that were said about her. She was not afraid. She was a stickler for detail, freedom of spirit to help other people, intellectual boldness, immediately enthusiastic, and everybody mentioned her time that she gave in her teaching. We all remember you really fondly, Karen. Okay, I am in the way of your coffee, as always. I will give you updates on EMDB and Empire, the teams that myself and Matthew are fortunate to lead at EMBL-EBI. At EMBL-EBI, it just has to be acknowledged, there are so many data resources that cover so many different types of data and also a sort of a breadth of information across life. We uh, run Empire, EMDB, and next to us, our close neighbors, PDB-E. We all take a different type of data that you all know, raw data, 3D reconstructions, and atomic coordinates. So this represents a well-trodden workflow. Empire also takes entire data sets, large scale, from single particle cryo-ET and volume EM. Um, if these techniques do lead to molecular reconstructions, that effort to archive those things, to put those in a database for a variety of reasons, is an international effort as part of the WWPDB and many, many partners around the world. So it was a huge operation, and just to call out the right people. I'm going to come back to this, but if you want to take a picture of this now, there's a QR code here which brings up a Google form. And if you've got things that come up in my talk that we don't really get to talk about now when I'm not around, but the team are, you can put something in that form and we'll try to have a chat about it. I'll come back to this. Right. So I'm going to give an update on the EMDB and then an update on Empire on Matthew's behalf. So this is kind of the life cycle of data from a WWPDB and an EMDB point of view. So just for EM, it sort of says something a little bit about responsibilities, and I'm going to use this to tell you where I'm going to give you updates. So we work together in the deposition. Really, then we hand over information to peer review, and all data that passes peer review must be made open. So once that paper comes out, it's then our responsibility to archive that and release that data. We are then also very, very interested in how that data can be reused. So I'm going to give some work updates on these three areas. I'm going to work backwards: data reuse, data quality, and deposition. Um, I'm preaching to the choir, I know, but we are very excited by how data gets reused. I think there are some amazing examples now of information being taken from the EMDB and PDB archives and then used to train a tool which itself is very useful in the structured determination process. The use of this is massive growth, and it was really nice hearing about cryoatom, I think yesterday. So there's more of this happening. And we all know about what happened with the reuse of PDB coordinates and their sequences that leading to AlphaFold. So data reuse really is very, very valuable. We want to enable that. From the EMDB point of view, there are a few things that you can find. Um, we want to drive data reuse, but you may find these useful tools yourselves. Now, all of our data fields that describe an entry are exposed on our website in a tool that is searchable. It allows you to interactively come into this page, and if you want to know where a bit of information is to tell you about an entry, because it's not on the web page front page, but we do have it in our data model, you can sort of search that out and find out how to look at it. You can go and have a look at this tool. A little bit different, but similar. Um, I'm sure everyone's doing this now. You all chat to LLMs and chatbots. Um, why not? Uh, what we have done and what you see happening in this video is we've exposed the information, the metadata in our database via what's called an MCP server. So what an MCP server does, and I'm sorry, Nelly, that I butcher it, and anyone else that understands this better than me, an MCP server knows how to talk to an LLM. So instead of that LLM, when you ask it a question, having to go and search the internet or look at some training model, it can actually come to our server and it gets information in real time to answer your questions. Um, this can serve as a kind of cute, um, but the underlying technology here is really, really powerful. Um, this is the beginnings of asking an AI agent to tell you about a name, tell you where the validation is good, um, or write me a program to retrieve EMDB entries with these properties because I want to train the next model Angelo. So good. I'm going to shift a little bit, moving back through that pipeline and talk about data quality. We've had, oh, something's popped up on my screen. No, it's fine. We've had phase randomized FSC curves on our EMDB website for a while now. Um, uh, because we're running that pipeline internally, we actually get a lot of other information for free, and we're now exposing that. So I mean, the obvious one is we have tabular resolution comparisons to what authors tell us. So sort of like a cross-validation on that. Now these numbers are actually, for the most part, in most cases, much more comparable to what you actually do at, within your workflow, which is helpful. We're also starting to expose things like the B factor of the maps that get measured when we apply a mask and measure the FSC and the resolution internally. So we think we can provide all of these as helpful data quality measures. Jez also been working on, uh, again, it's been around for a while, but he's really put a real concentrated effort into figuring out which of the model map FSC tools we can apply at scale and in production. And we're quite happy with that now. So you'll start to see this coming through on our website. Um, good. And the whole process here is how these tools begin life is in the labs that develop them, but then we figure out how useful it is with the community and with you, and we will implement that just on our website. So this is only in post publication. We figure out if we've got the presentation right, and this is where your feedback is really, really helpful. We have to evaluate whether that tool works reliably and at scale and on every bit of data that we get, because it cannot fail. And then we have to assign developer time to move that into validation reports. This is what reviewers get. This is where your manuscript is evaluated, and we are then told whether that data should be released or not. So the next steps for those tools that you've seen is for us to work through some of these processes. We'd love your feedback, and that will help us move these tools into the space where they're really, really valuable, which is in the hands of peer reviewers. Okay, so another shift, moving back through that pipeline. I now want to talk about deposition. Is it clear what this means? I can't hear any of you. We want to move deposition from this sort of a feeling into this sort of a feeling. Um, Everybody said, and Carl's going to give more detail on this. Here's the detail. So this is a really important step forward. Um, it's what Agnall first mentioned in his talk. The idea of your microscope at EBIC. Sorry, EBIC, that's not actually a picture of one of your crioses. Um, Collecting data and the metadata from that collection being carried through the image processing that derives your structure um, into a file. It may have atomic coordinates, it may not, but regardless, it carries the metadata from these two upstream processes. So then you, as the user, bring that file, that MMSIF file, to the deposition interface, and it fills it in for you. Um, so uh, go talk to Matt in particular, if I can call him out, on the exact status of the release of that workflow in Doppio. But it is sitting in EBIC now, um, and we hope that this is something a process that can be rolled out to other softwares as well, so that you don't have to fill in these forms. Um, I'm going to now repeatedly talk about MMSIF. Sorry. It's the carrier of information for us internally. So if it can be provided to us in that format, again, we get really good stuff in terms of making deposition more streamlined and easier for you. So this is just to note that there are now a bunch of tools. Probably developers are going to be most interested in these, but tools for exploring our dictionary, for handling MMSIFs, sort of copy and pasting them, if I can just say that, and validating them. There's a really neat trick in this tool, actually, that it allows you to take an existing MMSIF that has metadata and coordinates, and then, in a sense, duplicate it, but only duplicate the information you need to. And you can begin to imagine that this is quite powerful. Because if you have multiple similar depositions, I don't know, 150 subtomogram averages, many of the descriptions of those entries are similar. So this is potentially an underlying tool for generating those 150 SIFs and then doing it's a loaded word for some people, but batch deposition. So we're really building an ecosystem to support this. And then this is a project that is ongoing. There are so many people involved. Not enough time to name anybody individually, but I'll call out Matthew and Wesley, who are in the symposium as working on this from sort of our side and the CCP-EM side. Um, Fine, we can give you an MMSIF. You can bring that to DepUI, fill it in. That is still a file that you have to remember to look after. So let's go further. And as I say, that the project is in progress. We call it StreamDep. That transference of that file to us would not be done by you, the human. It will be done by a button. And then there's an API-based deposition to OneDep. If that was complete, I guess in theory, you wouldn't have to do anything. But in the sort of the short term, we'll have a system where if there's something missing, you can still come to our interface and fill that in. But that's to make sure I say that. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to look better. Thanks, Matthew. Um, yeah, and this is just to say this is the direction of travel for us, for the EMDB and for the WWPDB. And hopefully with not too much effort from you guys, but we build these tools, these systems that eventually lead to software-based deposition. And this will just make everything better, make your lives easier, make the information that we get richer and more complete. And that all feeds into better data quality, better data reuse opportunities, and um, the representation of the brilliant things that are happening in the cryo-EM field. All of that supports this amazing growth. Okay, we see it every year, but it's still there. Um, and this gives me an opportunity again to really acknowledge the worldwide effort that is involved in getting all of this data in, and the people who were at the symposium that really touch that data directly, at least at EBI. Um, Here's food for thought. You can go and perform this analysis yourself. Um, here's a view of uh, the contribution of in situ subtomogram averaging structures to the database. Um, so what's the way this is done is we have what 3,000 or so subtomogram averaging entries. These scripts have then gone and looked in the associated manuscripts because we don't actually have structured data on this yet. But if you go looking in the manuscript and then sort of do a keyword search, you can have this sort of dirty view of, well, did that subtomogram average, did it come from one of these techniques? And I'm sure it's not perfect, but it gives you an appreciation of how these techniques, in terms of what they're contributing, are scaling at the same rate as the depositions there. So it's not like this is a special outlier. So it's really good, as Martin said, that the investment in this infrastructure, continuing it and growing it, is being strategically discussed. Halfway, need to speed up. Um, you can find us here on these places, and I'm now going to tell you a little bit about some slides from Matthew. So, same story. Things are growing in Empire. Now it's standing at eight petabytes. EBIC, let's not compare data storage to you. Um, and on average, it's about 2.9 terabytes per data set, and on average, 38,000 files per data set. So they have a very different problem to what we do at EMDB, which is why great it's in the Matthews at the helm. Um, Here's how things are looking in terms of the distribution of techniques that are in the archive. I think you will see more information on this, more granular information in the future. And here's a note on a project that's really, really important and is, at least from the my view, there's one part which is the same message, which is getting information out of metadata in MMSIF. So when we get a subtomogram average, it can come into EMDB and WWPDB very cleanly and easily. But this project is really quite ambitious. It is a data format, a standard, to allow interoperability, that is, the doing subtomogram averaging in one software and then moving into another piece of software because there's a common sort of language that describes you how to go from those. So no more converters. But we will leverage that on our side by being able to pull out from that format to support deposition to various repositories. And there are a bunch of people involved in this work, funded by the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. Chris and Meow are here. They directly touch this. I think a big shout out to Chris for a lot of work. Um, I think I've said everything that's really here. There's a repo if you want to check this out. And there are converter packages that are allowing us to get MMSIFs, and we're testing depositions to OneDep and to Empire. You will hear more about this in the future. Um, Empire is still working in the volume EM space. There's some really nice and really good organizations. Yes. Love to just sit and play, but you get the idea. Really good. Else? And yes, coming soon and in the future in Empire, there's going to be concentrated work on annotation and enhancements there. You're going to see enrichment of Empire datasets by pulling metadata from us at EMDB and from literature, uh, and conversion to online streaming formats for visualization and API access. That means you being able to access the data that's in Empire because those datasets are massive. In terms of sort of considering where Empire is in terms of its focus, there was a big focus on volume EM maybe in the last couple of years. From the projects I've described and from talking to Matthew, there's a shift now to cryo ET, and more to come. Um, Damiano is also here. He is working on a new submission system. This will be unified between Empire and the Bioimage Archive. So the Bioimage Archive is the other resource that Matthew leads. And actually, this is just sort of for me personally, this is a really good move because although EMDB and Empire are so closely related in terms of experiment, technologically we're very different. Empire has to deal with really heterogeneous data sets, really big, large scale data sets. And technologically, this is much more similar to the sorts of problems they have in, say, archiving light microscopy images. But of course, we try to unify the whole thing in ways I've described. But Damiano will bring this new deposition system online, and it's going to be very good. Great. I have rushed a little bit. I know you want coffee in 4 minutes. Can I just say, we're here on Symposium Street at stall number 10. I think some of you have already taken some stickers. Well done. Uh, Je and Nelly are kind of a team. Yao and Minna are kind of a team. Wesley and Luke are the kind of team. We'll be there in the breaks. This is sort of a rough idea to cover particular topics. So if you have questions related to this talk that sort of fit into these buckets, do go by and have a chat with them. Also submit something in this form. It gives us a chance to have a think about it, and then you can come and get a sticker for your suggestion. If you've already taken one, which I heard has happened, then maybe you can still come and have a chat anyway. If you want to chat to us about an active deposition, there are different methods for doing that, and it's always good to point this out. For EMDB, you should do that with inside OneDep. It's monitored daily, and it will go to the right geographical location. Should you be in the States or Asia or somewhere else? For Empire, it's replying to notifications or to this email address. And if you have praise, we have dedicated email addresses for those. These are monitored less frequently, but we do love to hear from you. Good. Uh, there might be an opportunity back with us. I say might. We'll put out a call. Myself and Matthew were really interested to explore projects that leverage connections between the archives. We're particularly interested in applying this in the cryo-ET tomography and subtomography averaging space. So if you have ideas, you'd like to chat, this is a fellowship program through which we might be able to do something. Good. This slide is now too big because there are just so many people involved. A real big thanks to all the teams, Empire, EMDB, PDBE, um, the worldwide teams who have mentioned our funding and an increasing spread of collaborators. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for depositing your data, and thanks for listening. I think you have coffee in 1 minute.